Hey world! Let's talk about non-fiction books. At the beginning of this year I made the reading goal for myself that I wanted to read more non-fiction because, let's be honest, previously to this year I basically haven't touched non-fiction at all. It's just really not my style. I didn't really read non-fiction. But I wanted to change that. There are so many interesting stories and people and topics out there, and I just wanted to get more into non-fiction. So I kind of challenged myself to read non-fiction during my lunch break at work, because that is 1 hour and it just is a good amount of time to spend on something. So I actually did that. I did quite well and I'm really proud of myself. I read some really interesting books and I just wanted to share them with you. First off, there are 3 that I just want to quickly mention because it was voting year in Germany this year. We voted for a new government, which is really important but also really specific. So I wanted to quickly mention the 3 books that I read kind of around that topic. So I read Die Grüne Macht by Ulrich Schulte. This is kind of a biography about the Green Party in German, and kind of gives you a bit of a history of the party itself, but then more specifically of the lead candidates and their political history. And that's specifically really interesting now because they are actually both part of a new government, which is cool, and I feel like I know more about them and their way of doing politics now that I've read that. So that's good. I also read Ihr habt keinen Plan, darum machen wir einen. This is somewhat of a collection, but also kind of I don't really know how to explain it, but there's this group of young politically engaged people who kind of have their own party, and they basically made this book to show what is wrong and what they think we should change and what they think the ways of changing our German politics and also the European politics and world politics in general should be. So it's kind of 10 somewhat essays, I guess, on 10 different topics that they think should change in the political fields and how they think that could work. And it was really, really interesting. I'm gonna be honest, there's a lot I didn't completely understand. There are some things that I think I have to research more in order to know if I agree or disagree, but it was really interesting to see these young people just make a plan for the future and to see that they actually have ideas and opinions that could make our future better. So that was really interesting as well. And then I also picked up this teeny tiny little children's book that just kind of explains how German politics work, because it's been a long time since I've been through that in school, since I first learned about it, and I just wanted to make sure I know what I'm doing when I'm voting, and I'm definitely gonna keep this because, as I said, it's a children's book, so it's just really simple and easily explained and easy to understand. And yeah, just really tiny little helpful guide to German politics. And now let's move on to the more general non-fiction I read, starting with the most recent one, which is European Notes from Black Europe by Johnny Pitts. I actually tried reading this at the end of last year, or I think beginning of this year, because it was nominated for quite a few prizes. I think it even won some, but it was just kind of everywhere and I heard a lot about it and I thought it was a really interesting idea. Johnny Pitts is from England and he is black himself, and basically what he did was he traveled to some of the major cities in Europe to experience black culture and black history in those different countries and cities. And I thought it was really interesting. I did start reading it, and I'm gonna be honest, I did not handle the writing style well. He does a lot of really long sentences and goes on a lot of like tangents and historical detours, and I kind of just lost the the main story and he kind of goes on this entire detour and then goes back to where he actually started and where he is in that moment, and I just got confused a lot, so I put the book down. But then recently I went on a little trip myself where I had to sit on a train for 7 hours straight, and I thought, you know what, I need something to do, so I downloaded the audiobook to this, which is actually read by the author himself. And I'm so glad I did. It was so fucking amazing. It was so good. Like, genuinely one of my favorite books now. So definitely recommend that. All of the confusing long sentences and detours and tangents and off-topic notes that confused me in the book now made it feel like a conversation. Like, it really felt like I was just traveling with him, and we were walking down the street and he was just like pointing out the things he noticed or introducing me to people he met. It was so personal and engaging, and also like his voice and his accent are so soothing and nice to listen to. So I really enjoyed the audiobook, especially because, as I said, I was traveling myself and going through different cities. So it was like a nice companionship to listen to him traveling. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. The next book I read was another German one, and I was actually gifted this by my friend and colleague for Christmas last year, and she nailed it. So this is Aufblühen by Sarah Remski, and it's about a young woman who falls into deep depression and notices that taking care of houseplants helps her mental health. And it's really fascinating. It's also really pretty. There are pictures and illustrations all throughout. Obviously I can't find any right now. Like, it's just really aesthetically pleasing to look at, and also the structure of it is really interesting because she has some chapters that go really deep into those dark emotions and like hospital stays and really tough phases of her life, and then the next chapter is kind of like how to take care of this specific houseplant, and it has nothing to do with emotions, and it's just like a guide to plant care. So it's really interesting, and those two different aspects connected, and she actually references some scientific studies that show that houseplants help mental health. So it's really interesting, and also Sarah Remski just so happens to live and study in the city or close to the city where I went to uni, so that also was just like a nice personal connection. I then went on to Feminists Don't Wear Pink and Other Lies, which is a collection created by Scarlett Curtis on feminism. And there are a bunch of different authors in this and a bunch of different topics and views of feminism, and what I personally found really nice whilst reading is that it's kind of structured into different topics. So you have like a bunch of essays and opinion pieces on anger in feminism, and then some on how you first discovered what the word means, and then some on disabled feminism, and then some on black feminism and intersexual feminism. And then there's also a poetry section, which is really cool. I've never read feminist poems in that specific way. Like, that was so interesting to me. So I think it's a really well done collection. There are so many different people from different cultures and different backgrounds and different life circumstances. Some of them felt really close to my experience with feminism and how I live feminism, but some were like so different that I'd never been able to actually think of that way of feminism before, but now I can, so that's really cool. And yeah, I definitely recommend this, specifically for people who want to get into feminism and specifically intersectional feminism. I think this is a really nice place to start, because you then can like pick out the authors that are interesting to you and read more of their books, or there's this list at the end of other books that deal with specific topics in feminism, and you can go and read those afterwards. So I think it's a really nice starter set for feminism, I guess. And I also already have Scarlett Curtis's other collection, It's Not Okay to Feel Blue and Other Lives, which then deals with mental health and also has a bunch of different authors and their experiences with mental health. I haven't read this one yet, but I'm really excited to get into this because Feminists Don't Wear Pink and Other Lies really impressed me. Speaking of mental health, I then have two books to mention, one of which I don't actually have with me. It's a German book called Bin ich schon depressiv oder ist das noch das Leben by Zeiter. And it's quite a short book, and it's kind of just the author's experience with depression, specifically as someone who has family and who had to kind of like tell his wife that he is so depressive, he can't work and he can't deal with the family and anything. And I did find it really emotionally impressive. However, for me personally, it was kind of lacking something, and I can't quite explain what that was. It was just his personal experiences, and obviously he's just telling the story as it goes. But for me, there was kind of lacking, I guess, the aftermath, or the like how he now handles it. It felt very much like looking back onto the really difficult beginning of that episode, and I know for a fact that he is now better, or that he's been through therapy and that he now has better coping mechanisms, because he does mention that, but he doesn't actually get to that point in the book, and that probably was his intention, to focus on the really dark side of it and on the really bad side of it, and not go into like self-help, but I kind of wish he would have. So I did find it really interesting, but it was lacking that like final twist for me, just as a reader to know that he is getting better, I guess. And the other book is Besser Führen by Leon Winscheid. This is kind of self-help. Leon Winscheid is a scientist, and he, I guess this is his like collection of what are feelings and how do I deal with them. And it is scientifically proven, and it is like, I guess some of it is helpful, but I'm gonna be completely honest, I only own this because I met the author and he signed it for me. And it was like, well, okay, I guess now I gotta read it. And I did read some of it, and it's interesting, it's fun, it's well developed and well researched, and some of the aspects of feelings, especially of like anger and sadness, I hadn't considered before, so it was interesting, but it wasn't my style. I didn't connect with it, I didn't continue reading it, I probably never will, but I just wanted to mention it as well. And I guess sticking with feelings and depression, I then read You Will Get Through This Night by Daniel Howell. Obviously, Daniel Howell is a YouTuber. He's famous on YouTube. Everyone knows Dan. And this is his guide through mental health, kind of alongside his life story and dealing with depression himself. And as you can see, there are a lot of notes and a lot of little sticky notes, because this was so well done. This was so cool and so interesting and so connected, but also helpful, because he did a really good job of giving an example of his own life and showing how he struggled with it, and giving like experiences that can also connect to someone else dealing with a similar issue, but then going into and this is how you deal with this, and this is like a simple little way, because obviously the best way to deal with depression is with therapy and medical help and actual professionals. Obviously that's the best way, but there's so many little things that can help even if you don't actually have depression. Just if you're sad, or if you're unmotivated, or if you're going through a tough time, there's so many little things he mentions that are so helpful in everyday life. So yeah, loads and loads of notes. Definitely gonna keep this and go back to this every now and then, maybe like read it every year or every 2 years, because it really did just bring up so many things that I think will actually help me. And I didn't expect that, I'm gonna be completely honest. I expected this to be an interesting look into this person's life that like I've only seen through camera and that I'm kind of interested in, but like this is more personal. But it was so much more. It actually was so much more, and I really recommend the book, and I'm really fascinated. And by any chance, if Dan is watching this, thank you. Again, kind of on a similar note, I then read House Fires by Fuente. Again, Fuente, internet personnel, famous, really cool guy. And this is his third book. It's kind of a memoir, but also poetry and gorgeous photographs, like really nice and stunningly done, just really pretty to look at. He has these red end papers every now and then, and just really pretty poetry and pictures. Yeah, just like his other 2 books before. I cried a little bit, I smiled a little bit, I just really enjoyed it, and I think he has a really wonderful way of phrasing the human experience. I just really connected to it, I enjoyed it a lot. It's a really pretty book. It's just a stunning, gorgeous, really pretty book. I also this year read Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race by Renée Odoloch, I think is how you pronounce it. I read it towards the beginning of the year. Again, this is one that was in the press so much, such a popular book, and I really, really enjoyed it in the sense of I know these issues exist, I'm aware of them already, but am I really? Like, it never felt like she's accusing me of being racist or being a bad ally or being a bad person. I never felt like I was in the wrong. It just felt like, hey, you're white. You don't know. And she's right, I don't know. I'm a white person, obviously I don't know what it's like to be, yeah, racially profiled or something like that. So yeah, this was really interesting. It's mainly focused on the British history of racism, and there is a special additional chapter in this specific edition that deals with recent political changes in Britain and America that affect racism. But yeah, again, it just was really interesting. There's a lot of things that, as I said, I was aware of, but not to this extent. So I think it's just really, it's an important read, and I would really recommend everyone to read it. And then finally, I am currently reading this cute little sweet number. This is called Zeitan, Zeiter by Daniel Gray, and it's a German little collection that Daniel Gray wrote as kind of a love letter to books, which I think is lovely. So you have these really short little essays that are like 5 pages maximum, and he just goes on little like tangents about the smell of books, getting a good recommendation from a friend, walking into a new person's home and watching them at their bookshelf and like discovering who they are through their bookshelf. watching book to movie adaptations, like just all those small little things about being a book lover, and it's just so sweet. And yeah, I just really enjoy it. It's so sweet, it's lovely. So yeah, those are all the non-fiction books I read in the year of 2021. I'm really proud of myself, and I'm also really happy that I decided to take this step into this genre I thought I wasn't a fan of, because I discovered that I actually am. And specifically, I discovered that the way I enjoy reading non-fiction is either in the like academic sense of taking notes, looking things up, like putting little sticky notes in there and like really working with the text, or in like, I guess, topical memoirs. Not specifically a person telling their life, but a person telling their life surrounding a specific topic. So for example, Daniel Howell telling his life story surrounding mental health, or Johnny Pitts telling his travel stories surrounding racism in Europe, or Daniel Gray telling his life story surrounding being a book lover. So a memoir of a person, I don't even have to know them, just a person telling their life story with this specific focus. I really enjoy that, I really like that. And I'm so glad I discovered that about myself and about my reading habit, and I think it's really cool. And I have so many great new non-fiction books to look forward to in 2022. And yeah, if you've read any of these books, or if you have any questions, any recommendations on non-fiction I should read next, let me know all of that in the comments down below. And yeah, I hope you always have a reason to smile, and I shall see you soon. Bye!